Cairo, an 18-year-old young writer, pleases her 45-year-old literature teacher in order to find ideas for her book. Cairo lives alone in her house and finds comfort in writing, which she uses as a way to get rid of the solitude of her situation. She goes to school every day, crossing the woods in mini-ups and high heels. Upon arriving at school, Cairo meets Jonathan Miller, her teacher, a middle-aged man who has already dreamed of becoming an author. But despite their age difference, Jonathan plays a fatherly role in Cairo's life. However, Cairo admires Jonathan in secret. Jonathan asks her to start reading the books they will study during the semester. He is surprised when Cairo tells him that she has already read the 12 required books. They discuss literature until Cairo's friend, Winnie, arrives and invites him to eat with them. After the girls leave, Jonathan, curious about Cairo's reading choices, checks the books in his office. Suddenly, his friend Boris arrives, grabs a book that Jonathan was reading, and begins to read an explicit passage aloud. Jonathan tries to prevent Boris from reading the naughty part, but Boris insists. Boris sees a book that Jonathan wrote and is surprised to learn that Cairo has read it. When Jonathan arrives home, he finds his wife, Beatrice, seemingly too busy with her work to chat with him. Jonathan tells her about his enthusiasm at the idea that one of his students read his book. While he is chatting, Amy, Beatrice's colleague, calls him urgently. After the call, Jonathan flirts with his wife, but their intimate moment is interrupted when Amy calls again, leaving Jonathan frustrated. The next day, Jonathan tells Boris about his disappointing weekend and how Amy's interruptions ruined a romantic moment with Beatrice. While they are chatting, Jonathan sees Cairo coming out of the woods. Still agitated from the day before, he stares at her as she approaches. Cairo, ignoring the tension, greets them friendly. Feeling sexually frustrated, Jonathan tries to keep his calm by engaging in a casual conversation with Cairo. Then Winnie pretends to have accidentally dropped her things in the locker. Boris sees through her game and approaches her, asking about her needs. Cairo notices this and tells Winnie that she is being very bold. Winnie tries to give Cairo ideas for an essay, but Cairo finds them too ordinary. Winnie suggests that Cairo try to charm her teacher, Jonathan, to get dissertation ideas. Cairo is disconcerted and points out the big age difference that separates them, finding it strange. However, Winnie reassures her by telling her that age doesn't matter, and that Jonathan seems to be a nice and gentle man, making him a good choice for Cairo's first date. Despite Cairo's reluctance, Winnie's playful persistence stings her interest even more. Winnie continues to tease Cairo, saying that Jonathan often looks at her with desire, which embarrasses and distresses Cairo. As the days go by, Cairo becomes more and more interested in Jonathan. She ardently desires to experience a romantic relationship with him. In class, she often looks for Jonathan with her eyes, a sign of her attraction to him. Jonathan discreetly approaches her from behind and asks her in a low voice to join him in his office after class. Later, Cairo is surprised to find Jonathan dancing, and he congratulates her for her excellent work in one of her latest essays. He is impressed by her ability to memorize certain lines of his text. The professor asks her to write a short story in the style of her favorite author, thinking that if she succeeds in this task, she will spend the whole semester with Jonathan. This is a dream opportunity for Cairo, and she enthusiastically accepts the challenge. He then invites her to meet him this weekend to discuss in more detail the news about the meeting place. Jonathan surprises her from behind as they engage in conversation. Jonathan suggests that they perfect their literary talent together while a poet named Eliot performs. Cairo takes a look at Jonathan, whom she listens attentively. Later, she criticizes the poetry of Eliot, exchanging their thoughts and opinions. Cairo smokes and offers him a cigarette, which he accepts. On the first day of school, Cairo decides to change her appearance. She brings coffee to Boris and Miller and feels more confident, having fun and sharing a cigarette. Cairo tells Winnie that even though the professor didn't say anything about her new look, she knows he liked it. Later, Cairo tells Miller that she wants to write her short story in the style of Henry Miller, a famous author known for his writings about love and sex. Miller worries that this isn't a good idea because it might get her in trouble at school, but Cairo thinks it might make her story more interesting. After thinking about it, Miller trusts Cairo and lets her continue her project. Jonathan's phone buzzes with a message from his wife, who invites him to go away for the weekend. When they are alone, Winnie teases his friend by joking about the fact that Cairo is trying to seduce her teacher. Meanwhile, Cairo frantically looks for her phone. Jonathan's plans are disrupted again by Amy's insistent calls. Surprised to hear Cairo's voice when her phone rings, Jonathan learns that she accidentally placed his phone in her bag while they were talking. Jonathan's wife expresses her frustration about the postponement of their weekend plans. Jonathan volunteers to bring Cairo's phone home despite the rain that is coming. A heavy downpour suddenly begins to fall. Upon arriving, Jonathan sees Cairo outside in a seductive dress in the middle of the rain. Jonathan and Cairo look into each other's eyes and share a moment of intense attraction. As she approaches him in the pouring rain, overwhelmed by passion, he hugs and kisses her passionately. After this intense moment, Jonathan and Cairo find themselves in a state of daze. Jonathan only thinks of her suddenly. Cairo sends Jonathan her midterm exam, pulling him out of his reverie. Jonathan's wife asks him to leave her alone because she has other things to attend to. Jonathan retires to another room where he begins to read Cairo's finished work. He is enthusiastic about the captivating story, which touches on adult themes. Jonathan is very excited when he imagines himself in the scenes that stir up his desire. Unable to resist any longer, Jonathan hastens to take off his pants and please himself. The next day, Cairo arrives in class in a seductive outfit, but Jonathan's attitude towards her has noticeably changed. He no longer welcomes her with the same warmth as before. Feeling that something is wrong, Cairo asks Jonathan if everything is okay. Jonathan expresses his disappointment regarding the explicit content of Cairo's writings. She tries to explain, but Jonathan remains unmoved. He refuses to listen to her explanations and ultimately rejects both her work and their relationship. He criticizes Cairo's work and regrets having trusted her. When Cairo tries to share her true feelings with him, Jonathan's refusal to acknowledge them only fuels her anger. She then attacks Jonathan, calling his own works average and boring. Cairo's frustration grows, and she challenges Jonathan to give her bad grades in her exams. She begins to insult Jonathan, who remains silent and unwavering in his conviction in their roles as master and student. She says he is jealous because he can't do what she did. After this tense moment, Cairo leaves the class, slamming the door and leaving her story in the mailbox. A Miller school administrator returns home and tells his wife about the difficult day he had, detailing his meeting with Cairo and her story. His wife is intrigued by Cairo's writings, which leads to a lively discussion between the couple. Meanwhile, Cairo seeks to comfort herself by having a drink with her friend Winnie after having suffered a refusal from Miller. At that time, Jonathan receives a call from the principal's office, and he listens to the accusations made against him of having had an inappropriate relationship with a student. Jonathan neither accuses nor admits it, telling Beatrice that it is not true. However, she warns him of the potential consequences, mentioning that he could lose his job and his wife if the allegations are made, which turns out to be true. The next day, Cairo is absent from class because she meets with a principal. After class, Cairo and Professor Miller are both questioned at length. They answer questions about their interactions during class and whether they had a close relationship outside the school. Cairo's responses strongly suggest that there was a link between them. The teacher, worried about his professional future and his reputation, finds himself in a very delicate situation. The principal decides to suspend Jonathan. Once he returns home, Jonathan reluctantly announces to Beatrice that he was suspended when she asked him if he had feelings for Cairo. Jonathan hesitated and could not deny it, which led them to argue loudly. Beatrice, furious, left by slamming the door, saying that she wanted a divorce. At the same time, Winnie speaks to Cairo about the potential consequences of her actions, warning her that she could make Jonathan lose his job. However, Cairo dismisses his concerns with a wave of her hand. She considers it her greatest achievement and had even mentioned it in her dissertation. Cairo explains to Winnie that Jonathan did not think highly of her, so it was her way of getting revenge on him. According to you, was Cairo obliged to inflict such punishment on her teacher? Comments below. Thanks for watching this recap. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and tell me what movie you want me to recap next.